Welcome to the Blackburn End Podcast. If you want a podcast that has two fans that love to talk Rovers, you're in the right place. Like you guys, we've been up and down all season, which to be fair is just like the team's form. But the recent Rovers resurgence just wasn't enough as we finished 7th, 2 points shy of the playoffs. For a few minutes we were 5th and we were riding high and we was all getting all giddy, but just it wasn't going to be our day as it ends 1-1 with away at Sheffield United. There's no need to go through the headlines. There's only one story we really need to talk about, and that is how close we came to making those pesky playoffs. So, Mark, 2 days removed, how was that emotional roller coaster of a day?
It was okay. I actually thought I'd be a lot more deflated than I was in the end, and I think that comes down to the fact that I just felt it was probably fair. It was probably the right end to the season. It's not the end to the season I wanted, but I do think it's probably the right one, all in all.
It's crazy to think only a few short weeks ago we were getting the calculators out to see if we were safe from relegation, and then the final day starts and we were in a shout of promotion, and within a few, for a few minutes, I think it was about 9 minutes, we was in 5th place.
Yeah, and I think going into it, I think because we were so far out of it, the fact I'd kind of made peace with the fact that the playoffs were done weeks ago, so this half started to build, didn't it? But you kept thinking it's a long way off. Surely not. For 9 minutes, I definitely believed. Absolutely. I'm looking at the 2 other results and thinking, well, we only need one of them to go in our favour now. Just hold out. But I think ultimately that not just on Saturday, but I think over the course of the season, we just weren't quite good enough. And it's fair. I do. I think it's a fair outcome.
Well, you took your girl to the game. I didn't have the luxury of being able to go to the game. I was in Birmingham city centre with Coventry fans and fans around me all taking the piss. Well, except for that 9 minutes, to be fair. They were all looking at me thinking, oh, my God, it's going to work out for this guy. But, yeah, we'll play the match audio reactions. I realised that I'd actually, because I'd had a couple of drinks, I'm not going to lie to you, and I did 2. I did one at half time, one at full time, and you can tell I'd had a couple. So let's play that.
Half time review, mate. It all seems to be going our way. We just need something to drop on the pitch. Thought we should have had a penalty in that first half. Toth doing really well. They should have scored. I mean, missing one under the bar. Everything's going our way, mate. Second half, it's all to play for. We just need to be a little bit more clinical in that final third. But cross fingers, mate. The second half, we're going to be celebrating. Mate, so close. I felt like we gave everything we had. I got a bit frustrated with Emmanuel Dennis there, clearing the ball for them at the corner, but ultimately, lads did their best they could. And considering where we thought we were a few weeks ago to where we've ended up, I think we've got to say it's a successful season. Whatever's happened off the pitch has happened off the pitch, but on the pitch, lads gave everything. Bit flat. I thought Toth was unreal. I think he's put himself now in that number 1 shirt. I think everyone can stand behind him. I just hope that we do some real good stuff in the off-season. But yeah, chuffed that we were as even with him with the shout, but a bit disappointed that we just couldn't finish it off at the end. I thought we were, but we didn't. But I think as fans, we can just all be proud. Looking forward to talking to you on the pod about it, though.
Well, ultimately, you get what you deserve in a football season. You can't say that it's just today at all, but I thought in the second half there was lots of huffing and puffing. Thought we could have changed it earlier, but there was a lack of quality and composure at times. We didn't really create that much. Not for a lack of effort, and not for today, but I think like I've said, you absolutely get what you deserve over the season, and we just weren't good enough consistently. What I would say is I've found a new team to dislike very, very strongly, because why they felt they need to time waste consistently when they're drawing with us, and they've not really anything to play for, kind of shows where they're at as well, but forget about them. Lots to work on, lots to build on, but lots of changes to be made. Well, at least we get a summer off.
Well, it sounds like I was at a kids' roller disco. I promise I wasn't. I was with adults, and it was a proper bar that I was in. After my reaction, I listened back and I thought, hang on, I was quite positive, really. And I was feeling, I don't know whether it was the alcohol or just happy that we had those 9 minutes because I didn't expect it. But after the game, I felt quite positive. Now I'm still seeing those missed chances, those missed opportunities across the season. It's something that obviously we will review next week. But I actually felt quite positive after the game. It sounded like you was a little bit frustrated. Was that about right?
Wouldn't say frustrated. I think I was just resigned to what was happening. I think if I'm being hypercritical in the game itself, I thought we changed it too late. Obviously, they went down to 10 men, didn't they, with the injury, but it wasn't working in that second half. I think Sheffield United, I know they made a lot of changes, but they're a good championship team. They're very well organised. They're masters at the art of housery. They have a little bit of quality in certain areas. And it was just clear to me it wasn't going to work. What we were doing wasn't working. Cogbo, for all his pluses, he's not played that much football. I'm not going to write him off yet, but I think his touch and things lends itself to playing on the counter-attack more than when they were sat in. And I just felt that we needed to mix it up. It was clear to me from about the 60th minute that actually we're going to have to do something different here. The momentum had shifted to them. So I would have personally, because they were playing their fullbacks quite high and wide, I would have gone Gay central, brought a couple of them really narrow to him and gone 3 up and just slung it to him and just tried to change the feel of the game. But the other thing, I think if I'm being hypercritical again, I looked at that goal back. You couldn't really see it from the away end. It's a horrific view. But I'm not really sure what he was doing. He seemed to go for the ball that was never there. I don't know if he misjudged it. And ultimately then he was out of position. But I just felt at the end of the game, Mike, I think I was just resigned to the fact that it felt right. It did. It felt, not just in that game, it felt like we just didn't have enough. And it felt like we left ourselves too much to do. And I'd have loved to have sneaked in. I'd have loved the momentum still be going. I'd have been saying, do you know what? It's with us now. We're going to go to Wembley. But I think it was the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like if we'd made it, it probably would have been a bit undeserved, and not because of the recent form, just because of the season's form. And when you sent your audio and I listened to it, I was like, I get it. You know, it is across the season. It's not just about the recent form that means that you deserve that spot. You can't have these bouts of poor forms where it's just L after L after L on it and expect you to be up in those playoffs. But there's always one team that manages to just pull it out at the right time, get in there. And we spoke last week about, why not us? Why not us? It seemed like not long ago we were really negative and thinking about gutting the team, talking rebuilds and stuff like that because, we was just emotional as everyone else. Right. But then on the opposite flip side of the coin, we managed to get this form together. You had players like Dolan and O'Hashley, Cantwell, all suddenly performing in the final third, and defensively we seem to be all right. We had a great goalkeeper in Toth, who's someone that we will review next week, that seems to be doing really well. So it just seemed like an opportunity lost, and that's where I've come to now. I'm now looking at things and thinking, why couldn't that game go a little bit better for us a few weeks ago? Why couldn't we get a goal? Dennis, he effectively cleared a ball for them out of their own penalty box with one of his headers. I'm like, geez, if you want someone to go up and win a header and miss by that much, I'll do it at half the price, mate. You don't need to go and get Dennis on loan to do that. So, it was really frustrating coming out of it. As far as the momentum, I just saw that there was always an opportunity for us throughout the whole game. First half was a bit meh. It seemed a little bit tentative from us. Should we have had a penalty? To pull back the curtain, normally I watch these games twice and then I'll watch the highlights. I'll make notes. I haven't had a drink. I've only watched this game once. It was behind beer goggles and I felt like it was a penalty. Have you seen it back?
Yeah. So from the away end, it looked like dare I say, typical Cantwell. I'm going to make the most of this. But when I've watched it back, I think if that was in the home end, I think they'd have got that penalty. I think he has instigated the contact. He's put his leg out, but there was not much made of it, really. I mean, I know he was appealing, but it was kind of like the ref just dismissed it. I think it certainly goes in the category of I've seen them given, yes.
Yeah. And then they go and miss one from under the bar. Now, again, Sheffield United, if you want someone that can miss something from under the bar, I will do it at a quarter of the price of that player, because that was horrendous. And that was the point where I was really thinking, okay, maybe it might not be our day today, because whilst we had some real good opportunities to get forward in that first half, that opportunity just made us realise how much Sheffield United have in the bag. And, you know, they had quite a few opportunities, but that one was clear as day, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that was right in front of us. And at half time, I'd resigned myself. I thought, there's too much to do here. The other teams around us, you're relying on them a bit too much. It still wasn't fully going in our favour. And I didn't think we were going to do it at that point. And then second half, we come out, we break. Ohashi bags, I have never seen limbs like it. People were ending up rows in front. They were ending up nowhere near where they started. And for 9 minutes, we believed. For 9 minutes, I thought this is actually happening. But I don't want to say we self-destructed, but we did seem to sit back. And I think the tentativeness of the first half, the panic stations a little bit were setting in. And we were, 40 minutes from the end of the game? It's too early to be doing that. And I don't think they were deliberately doing it. I just think that's the momentum of the game and the way the game was going. But I thought that you looked at people like Dolan, who've been on absolute fire in the last few weeks, and they looked shot. They looked like they were running on empty, whether that was an adrenaline dump, whether that was the occasion, whether actually they just weren't good enough on the day. I don't know. Probably a mixture of all of those things. But it didn't really seem to matter who was on the pitch, did it? Carbo came on for Hedges, I thought was doing all right. So he got the knock. Carbo came on. He looked short of match fitness, I think we'll say.
He looked poor to me when he came on. There was a couple of times, I think one time he ran it out of play and things like that. And it's one of these where I know he's going to be a player that can really develop and give us something. But, you know, what do they say? The occasion gets to you. And I just think the occasion with this, we needed probably experience more than anything else. And when you look around, there's not... is there any players there really that you can say have been in this kind of position before? You know, without going through their history. You're talking your Danny Barts, you know, definitely, but Travis, Tronstad, you know, they're not exactly players that have been in these positions. And then when you've got players like him coming on and running out of play, you do start to get a bit frustrated as a supporter.
Yeah, he looked very, very raw, didn't he? You wanted a bit of composure at that point. I mean, it's easy to say now. You can see why he brought him on. They were on top. Cardboard's there with his pace on the county. Completely get it. We'd have all probably done the same at that point. But you look back now and you think, could he have gone with Gay at that point? Could he have dropped Ohashi in? Could he have put Cantwell onto the left? All these kind of things. But ultimately, I'm not looking at the game and thinking, do you know what, that decision cost us, that player cost us at all. I'm really not. I'm surprised myself, really. I'm quite content in the fact that I'm disappointed, massively disappointed. I thought for 9 minutes we were going to do it. I was obviously last week, I was all in. I'm like, do you know what? The momentum's with us. Sheffield United will rest some players. We're going for this. This is happening. But I think then when you take a step back as well, and you look at the fact that Thomason in that season, that we finished a couple of places outside, one place outside the playoffs, we ended up with it 69 points. That would have got us in. Mowbray in the season before, when we had the absolute fall from grace, 69 points, it would have got us in. Even right back to Gary Boyer's Kearney, Gestead, Rhodes team, we would have got in the playoffs with those points totals. And I think you look at the amount of points that Leeds and the others have got, Sheffield United, and I think it just shows that the fact that we've been saying for weeks, haven't we, when even before Ishmael came in, how are we still in and around this playoffs? And it was because everyone else was so poor. Everybody else was losing games. And that's the reason that we're still in and around the playoffs, if we're being honest. That's the reason we had a chance. It wasn't for any great deal of quality or run of games other than this last 4 that we'd had. I think the reason that we still had a chance was because the other teams were equally as poor and inconsistent. What will happen in the playoffs, I don't know. I think Sheffield United have probably got enough quality, but it's the playoffs. You never know.
I don't want to talk about other teams that I don't know enough about, but I think it's actually quite a poor playoffs this year. I think the teams that are in there are relatively poor. And when I watched that game, so that first half, it was probably Sheffield United's half in regards to momentum and stuff. But when we got into that second half and we got that goal, I was looking at the other results. I was talking to people around me. I was talking to people I didn't even know, and asking them about their teams and stuff. And you start getting a little bit giddy, and you're looking around. You're on your phone, like, what's happening in other games, what's their form and stuff. And I was looking, and I got onto the BBC's league, and it tells you the form of everyone. I was looking, I was like, some pretty poor teams there. Sunderland aren't doing well. Coventry are probably the stronger ones of the 3 that have come in on those levels, and Bristol. Bristol being in there. Watch them go and sneak in. Now I've said it, but they haven't done that well, and it looks like it's definitely Sheffield United is the best of the bunch. And I was thinking to myself, if we get in the playoffs, we've beaten a team that hasn't rotated a hell of a lot. You look at their the rotation, the team that they've picked, and a lot of those players will get into our team. A lot of those players I would take. To be honest, I would take all their players. But I'm looking at them and I'm thinking that there's so much quality. If we can beat these, why not? Why not us to go into that and get a result? And that's why I started to get a little bit giddy. And those 9 minutes, I don't know why. I just said to myself, just enjoy it while it lasts, because it's not going to last. I just knew something would go against us because it's Rovers, and I didn't necessarily think it'd be us. I just thought other things would go against us somewhere. But yeah, I just enjoyed those 9 minutes. The limbs when Ohash's goal went in. Just talk to me about that.
It was unbelievable. I think my daughter was on my left-hand side. The lad on the right-hand side of me was hugging me. But as he's doing it, he's whacking his hand down, up and down. Daughter's head's going back and forward, but she was loving it. There was a guy that I saw fly about 4 rows in front. It was, I've seen it back on the telly. It's unbelievable, to be fair. And Sheffield United fans were saying, wow. But it meant something, didn't it? At that time, it did mean something. The guinea pigs.
The guinea pigs have got have got limbs right now. They're reliving it for you.
They're loving it. But yeah, it was a very, very good moment. And it was a moment that I'm glad we had, because quite easily those games, you could go and score late on and you're like, oh, come on. But it's not amounting to much. We believed, didn't we? We had that moment. And it just felt that it gave us that little bit of, do you know what? I think the fans deserve that for this season. I think they deserve that moment. And I think it was as much about us making the most of what this season has been. But then you're absolutely right, Matt. I know they changed 7 players, didn't they? But you look at their team. If we'd have gone and got Tom Cannon in January, we'd have been saying, that's us. That's what we needed. That's us getting in the playoffs. Whether it would or it wouldn't. I watched him miss from about 4 yards out. Equally, I am also going to offer my services if someone wants to pay 10 million for me and offer me whatever a week. I will miss from there, not a problem. But yeah, they've got some quality, haven't they? But what I would say is, I think, despite the fact that Leeds and the others have got 100 points and this lot got, over 80 points, you look at Sheffield United compared to where they were 2 years ago, they're a shadow of that team. I think you look at Leeds compared to where they were last year, they're a shadow of their team. The other lot down the road, nowhere near the team they were. And yet they've still got such a massive amount of points. And I think that tells you all you need to know. I think for once, and I always think in cups, things can happen, but I always think the season, you do get what you deserve over the season. every team looks back and says, oh, if we'd have got that decision, if we'd have done that. You always look back at yourself, but ultimately you haven't done it, and that's why you are where you are. But I do think I have never seen a league table as reflective of when I look at the table and think, yeah, Cardiff were awful. They deserved to go down bottom of the league. Leeds and the others, do you know what? They weren't great, but they are far away above everybody else. And what it says about the Championship, what it says about the gap to the Premier League, I think we all know. But I'm not really bothered. All those people who say, oh, this was our chance, next season the Championship will be better. It feels like we've said that for 5 or 6 years now. And everyone says, oh, Southampton are coming down. Southampton are crap. They've got one of the lowest points totals in the Premier League. And not because everyone else is getting better, because they're absolutely awful. They're coming down. It will be the same again next year. If we recruit well and we keep the nucleus of our team, I think we can go again. I don't subscribe to this. Do you know what? This was our one chance, because we said that under Eustace, we said it under Mowbray, we've said it loads. I think that there's enough space in the Championship for really well-organised teams that do the basics well. And I just think, and I know we've said this every single bloody summer, but the recruitment is the key. And I'm sick of hearing noise, and it's now time to see what will happen and for actions to speak louder than words. But going back to this game, I just felt, do you know what? There wasn't much in it, but we just didn't have that next gear to go in. And whatever the reasons.
No, we didn't build on that first goal, did we?
No.
Because you know what's going to happen. You know, like we just said, the team that they've got, the squad that they've got, they're far too good. And they weren't going to sit back, because that's not what footballers do. You know, they didn't want to sit back. It wasn't in their interest to sit back and let us just win 1-0 or get a couple of goals. They wanted to ruin it for us. They didn't want us to come to their place and get anything. They didn't want us to have these limbs. You know, so, and I get that. It's professional football, and I wouldn't want them, I'll be honest, I wouldn't want them to do that. I want us to earn it. I don't want us to do it any other way. And when that goal went in, I felt like we reacted okay. I think we gave them a little bit too much respect, but we needed to build, you know, and that's hindsight's 2020. And like I said, I haven't watched the game back, but I was saying to my mate, I was saying, we're sitting back a little bit too much here. Like we need to take control again. We need to go and get something, give them something more. And if we lose this 4-3, whatever, I don't mind. But I just didn't want it to be that we sat back and we started to just get that little bit more tentative. The ball comes in and we're at 6s and 7s in the box. And I'll be honest, it was that, you know, they call it the corridor of uncertainty, where the ball went in, where who deals with it. Defender doesn't want to touch it. Goalkeeper's not sure whether to come for it. And it was one of those things where, ideally, being really brutal, I want my goalkeeper to come and absolutely clatter everyone to get that ball. But I 100% understand why it did, and the ball dropped where it dropped. And I just think it was a moment of carnage, and the ball goes in. And I'll be honest, it was probably the right thing at the time for it to be a draw. I was just hoping we would push, but it did seem to ignite us a little bit. But we were still that little bit toothless. I mean, did you feel like we had, you know, anything about us to go and get a 2-1 win there?
No, I didn't. Going back to that goal, if you watch it back, Hyam, I don't quite know what he's doing. The reason he's out of position, because he would have just been there to clear it. I think it's Harmer that's going to clip the ball in the box, and he makes a movement out as if he's going to clear it, but the ball's nowhere near him. It goes right to the back post. I don't know what he was doing, and then he just never recovers and doesn't get the right side of. I'm not even going to attempt to say his name, but yeah. So it's poor, but it happens, doesn't it? But then, yeah, I looked at us and I'm thinking, we need changes now. Now we need changes, because we were looking, it wasn't working, was it? We needed to spark something. Cardboard comes on, you go, okay. I was expecting more than just Cardboard. Or Hedges was injured, but 70th minute, I still was expecting more. And the moments are ticking by. It's a strange one at Sheffield United, because you can't get any signal. They've got a clock on the stand, but they've no scoreboard that you can see in the way. And so you've no actual concept of how many minutes are going in this half. So you're looking at your watch thinking, I know the game's kicked off a bit late. You're kind of guessing. And then when Gay's coming on and Dennis, I'm thinking, this feels late. And then a notification came through on my phone from Rovers to say the subs, and it said like 83rd minute. Like, what is he doing? It did feel like that. You're like, this should have been 10 minutes earlier, certain 5 minutes earlier. And almost at that point, I think we were plugging away and nothing was going to happen. You were kind of hoping that something would happen rather than making something happen. And I wanted us to just go for it a bit more. But then bizarrely, he's throwing Toth up for corners at that moment as well. So it was a bit of a...
I felt like that was a bit early as well.
That felt early, yeah. I was a bit, whoa, make your mind up.
It was a real weird one. I'm glad you've said that, because I was the same. I was like, these subs. Do you know what it felt like? It felt like, what happened at Bradford, where they scored their, last kick of the game in their game. I think was that for them to get second place.
Yeah.
It felt like that's what he was looking for. It's like he told the boys, look, if he's going to be drawing with a few minutes to go, and then we're going to absolutely chuck everything at it. That's how it felt to me. Like there was no real tactical design as such. It was like, right, we're just going to have chaos for the last 10 or so minutes. That's how it felt.
But I don't disagree with that, if I'm being honest, because I was watching the game and they were comfortable. They had everything Dolan was doing, Campbell or Hashi, they had him in their back pocket, really, at that point. Nothing was going to happen. We were just going to keep plugging away and nothing was going to change. Yeah, something can drop here, but it didn't seem likely, certainly not by design. And I would have gone chaos at 75 minutes. I would have gone Gay up. They were playing their fullbacks really high. I'd have gone, probably moved Cogbo in because it wasn't working him out wide. I'd have probably put Dennis next to him, or even kept Dolan, whatever you wanted to do, but kept two really close to Gay and just pinged it to him and said, right, you buzz in and around, see if they're going to change shape. Make them think about having to do something different, because they were quite comfortable. Yeah, we made it a little bit chaotic in the last few minutes, balls into the box, but it still felt we were hoping for something rather than expecting anything, rather than creating anything. And I kind of felt, there's probably 10 minutes or so left when Gay come on, and at no point did I think we should have scored. I mean, the Dennis one, to be fair, from where I was the other side of the net, it looked like he should have scored. I've seen it back, and it was a lot further wide than it looked. Still looked like a poor header, don't get me wrong.
But a great clearance from the lad.
But I still go back to what I'd said in my match reaction. They were so strange. The keeper was time wasting. He was dropping to the floor. They were dropping like flies. They were taking their time over everything. He thought, what is going on? It was like they needed a point to get over the line. It was a very, very strange one. And I don't.
It's like we would have preferred it if they were trying to win. If they're trying to win, if they're trying to speed up the game and thinking, if you've come at us, we're just going to chuck it over the back and try and get a goal. I'd appreciate that, because that's football. But yeah, I found the time wasting weird. Yeah,
it was a bit like, we're going to stop you having this. Now, whether that's a compliment, maybe I might be looking too deep into this. Maybe they didn't want to play us. Maybe. But they certainly wasted as much time as they could and nullified the game. And I just thought it was, I'm not all into sportsmanship, don't get me wrong. If we're winning 1-0, I want us to get in the corner and sit on the ball. I'm not bothered. But when there was nothing really in the game for them, exactly like you're saying, why are you going for a draw? Go for the game. Go for the jugular. Instead of just time wasting to kind of go, I'm going to make sure you don't get in the playoffs. It was almost like they had a real dislike for us, or they didn't want to play us, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, it was strange.
It's an interesting one, actually, thinking about it, like the mentality behind a footballer at that point. Because are they drained? Are they thinking, do you know what? I want to save myself. I don't know. But I found that strange. The other thing I found strange, and tell me if I'm wrong here, the subs for me, they were like for like in the most part.
Yeah.
And that's what I didn't get, because I'm like, if you'd taken off Hyam and Bart for the last 7 minutes or so and said, right, we're going to put on Dennis and Gay and just have Britton and Ribeiro sat at the back with maybe Tronstad in front of them and have everyone else going and Travis in front of them and just have everyone else going forward. I think as fans, we would have been like, get it. I'd prefer to lose 3-1 going for it than go out with a 1-1 because we're trying to keep things tactically sound. That's what I found strange, because if you are going kitchen sink, go kitchen sink. Go get all the sinks you've got and throw them at them. That's what I was expecting. But to finish the game with the solid back four, and I'm like looking, thinking, okay, so what was the decision here? What have you decided to do? Because you've decided to keep the tactics, which were they working, were they not working, you could argue about, but you need a goal. You need a goal. That's it. We need to win this game no matter what. The tactics haven't worked for, they worked for one goal, but generally for only 9 minutes we're leading this game. And Sheffield United have too much quality to really break them down again. So let's just do something different. If you want to cause carnage, just go cause carnage. Rather than bringing Toth up for corners in the 80-odd minute, actually take off your defenders. And because Hedges had a knock, didn't he?
Yeah, Hedges.
But Campbell seemed fine. Dolan seemed fine. Tronstad seemed fine. Travis, okay, I appreciate, isn't going to offer much going forward, but he would have sat there in front of two defenders and just. I just think, okay, maybe I wouldn't have brought off the two centre halves straight away, but I might have brought one off and brought a striker on and gone to three at the back and just said go for it. It just seemed a very strange.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're trying. It's like you're trying to change things tactically rather than just go for it.
Yeah, I think he seemed to just want to get his most offensive players off the bench onto the pitch, didn't he? But I mean, I think there was even a case for throwing people like Danny Bart up front. Yeah. Get Callum Britton wide, absolutely. Have Cogball as a wing back, whatever you want to do, you just mix it up, don't you? You might as well lose 2-1 as what happened. And it felt like we went for it, but not.
It was half-assed. It was a half-assed. Yeah, like go for it.
I actually half expected Danny Bart to, because he does this quite a bit, where you can see him just going, I am an experienced pro and I'm just going to do this. And I half expected him to just go up front and stay there. And I think he should have done, if I'm being honest. But yeah.
It's a strange one. I mean, I haven't heard all the interviews after. It sounded like people, a lot of the players were flat. And I understand why. It seemed like the manager was relatively flat. But I think, like looking back, I think they're quite proud of themselves for being where they are. And I completely appreciate that. I just think the fans, as much as we appreciate the fact that we have really pushed these last few weeks, and we've got some form together, we've put ourselves into this position. It just feels like we've put ourselves into that position, but we just didn't show enough for, fight just at the end. And, I'm not on that pitch. I could have been emotionally and physically drained, and that could have been it. But we had chances there, and like you say, Sheffield United was sitting back. It was just a real good opportunity to really just throw the striker on for a centre half rather than going like for like. Woodrow came on. That's not exactly going to fill you with confidence. Forshaw, come on. That's not exactly going to fill you with confidence. Gay did. I don't remember Gay doing anything of note. And then, like I say, Dennis had his one opportunity and it was terrible. So it just didn't work out for us, did it?
No, and there was no tomorrow, was there? So I think if he'd have, it made it all the stranger, like I say, going back to the fact that he was putting Toth up for corners in about the 85th minute, because he was going all for it, but only from corners. He was obviously prepared to lose 2-1 at that point. So it was strange. But like I say, I think I'm not blaming Ishmael. I'm not blaming any individual players. I know people have had a pop at Dennis, but we expected more of him from his loan, but he hasn't. It's not any one individual. It's not. I don't want to get into the other discussions, but it's. I think it feels right over the season ultimately.
Yeah, definitely. And the season ended, and I'm just looking at some of the I'm looking at Rovers X right now, and I think everyone seems quite positive at the end of the season in general, like when it comes to fans regarding the finish at 7th. But initially after the game, I got a vibe that the fans were extremely frustrated. What was it like at the full-time whistle? Were the fans in the ground, were they particularly frustrated, or was it just like emotional dump at the end?
A real mix. It was our whole fan base in one end. There was a lot. I mean, everybody was really proud of the players, and not their efforts just for Saturday. I think for what they've been through this season, and certainly the last few weeks, what they've done to give us any hope. The fans were really, thanking them for that. But then there was the Venky's out chance, which then, as the players were going off the pitch, spilt into even Dolan, sort of clearly saying bye, sparked a couple of moments in the away end where people, there's the people singing 10 more years, Tyrese Dolan, and others saying, no, he's rubbish. And there was those debates going on. So, yeah, there was some angry people. I think there was some people who'd had a few beers. There was some disappointed people. And then it was just a real mix. I think it was almost like you'd put everyone on X into one stand. But I would say the overarching feeling from that away end was, do you know what? Let's just say thanks to the players. Let's get that season under our belt. And, let's call it a day. Draw a line under it.
Did Ishmael come over, did you say?
Ishmael, he has done the last few games, to be fair,
yeah.
Not. He's obviously not his thing. He's not a main character. He doesn't do what Eustace did. And I'm not always a big fan of that, to be honest. Where the manager's going out, I think the time that I got really upset by it was when the players were fronting up and the players were getting the grief. I think that's the time as a manager to come and make sure you're stood with them. And it felt like he abandoned them at that point. It's obviously not his style, but he's coming out and making a point that the fans can see that he's applauding them. So fine. I think
the thing is, though, as when it comes to that, just to go back to what we said a few weeks ago about the fact he hadn't come out and he'd applauded fans, but now we're winning, he has, which is a bit coincidental. I think when we've been used to managers that have done that, if that's not your thing, surely someone on social media or someone from the club is seeing what's being written on social media can go back and say, just so you know, this is your current look. This is how people are perceiving you. And he could maybe just slot it into an interview and just say, look, I'm not the kind of guy to come and applaud the fans. It's not that I don't appreciate their support. It's not that I don't appreciate that they've travelled and spent all this money to come and see us. It's the players' time, because it's the players that have done the work, not me. Anything like that, just to approach it. So that's the strange thing. But I just thought I'd ask. That one. But yeah, it's interesting to hear what you're saying. That you were hearing around the stand, because obviously I was straight on X. I was looking, and some of the responses were, not much fell for us. We looked leggy, but then, you get people saying, remember losing to Cardiff and Plymouth. That were relegated, but then there's other people that are saying, well played lads, a good effort, make no mistake this season. The only person to blame for just falling short is John Eustace and him walking out. Now that's a real interesting one. I think this is something we need to talk about next week. So just so people know, today's podcast is literally just going to be talking about the Sheffield United game. We've obviously got no preview, but we don't want to talk about things we have no information on just yet. So we don't want to talk about the future because there's so many contracts and signings that may happen. But next week we are going to do our season review, and one thing we do need to discuss is a what if, and what if John Eustace didn't go. But I'm seeing a lot of comments still about Ishmael not being the man, and that, just because we got to where we got to, it doesn't mean that he is the right guy for the job. How much do you think he's impacted us? Has he helped or hindered us since coming in?
I think the players really struggled to adapt. and I'm not saying that's about him. I think the players really struggled to adapt. I think it emotionally affected them, Eustace leaving. They managed to galvanise themselves, but then they had a manager who's coming with a different style. And I don't mean anything to do with the pitch, just a different style, a different individual. Obviously, I went to the fans forum a couple of weeks ago now. And prior to that, I'll be honest, I was a little bit more harsh on him because he'd been coming out, hadn't he? And it felt like there were excuses. He was talking about injuries. They were saying to him, why are you where you are in the league? Injuries. And I was quite critical of him, saying that he's come in saying he's not going to change his style. Then he has. He's now whinging just about injuries and blaming it on that. But actually, I had a really good conversation with Adam Owen, who's an impressive bloke. And he was talking about, for those who don't know, he's the head of technical development at Rovers. And I sort of made that point to him, that why is he changing things when he said he wasn't? Why is he whinging about injuries, etc.? And we had quite a decent discussion about it. But what he was saying was he came in with the plan not to change much. He's got a different way of playing football, but his identity, he doesn't think these players necessarily fit into that anyway. But, they want to go back to that. And we had that discussion as well, but that's for another day. And he talked about how if you go back to the Norwich game, his first game in charge, we played the way that we've played pretty much all season. We then lost a couple of players. So Weimann scored, didn't he? And celebrating, he actually did his knee. Out goes Weimann. The next couple of games, he's tried to keep playing the same way. And if you remember, Mike, we look back at the games and I look back at what we were saying about it. And we were actually talking after those games saying, we just look gay, so isolated. We can't get up the pitch. And what Adam Owen was talking about was the players that we really rely on physically to get us up the pitch, or technically in terms of picking those passes, were out. They've gone and got injured. So Carter's gone and got injured. We had, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head now, but Dennis and Cardboard got injured, didn't they? We had an injury to, obviously Cam Britton, then Carter got injured. Beck got injured. So he was losing 2 players a game, that kind of thing. Travis and Tronstad looked like shadows themselves, so they were not able to pass the ball up the pitch. And what he was saying was, we sat at that point and said, I know we weren't going to change it, but this is not working either. So we're going to have to go with a different approach. So I said to him, we were talking about saying about how it was some sort of weird hybrid. And he basically said that it was, because we were trying to make the best of what we had in terms of the makeup of the squad. So they felt that they didn't have the energy in the team to go full high press, but equally it was just too disjointed. So they tried to work on a basis of keeping the team really compact, but moving them further up the pitch. So they've not got as big a distance to cover when they win the ball. And then obviously if you look at the Luton goal where Hedges wins the ball and Ohashi's then in, that's kind of the way they went with it. So to be fair to Ishmael, when I've looked at it on that basis, I have a little bit more sympathy. I think they could have done a better job at communicating it, but equally, were people wanting to listen? Probably not at that time. I think I'm back in the boat of, like I was with Eustace after last season. Although Eustace did the job, right, okay, draw a line under it. I think Ishmael, we'll talk about whether we would have got in the playoffs under Eustace or not next week. But I'm prepared to draw a line under Ishmael and judge him from day one in August.
Yeah, and it's exactly what we did with John Eustace. We've said plenty of times that he wasn't a manager that we necessarily got excited about. I know, you were one of the ones, and we had plenty of discussions about it. And he proved to be successful this year, and hopefully Ishmael is. I'm not. I can't get my brain around what happened after the game at Sheffield United. Did we put out a 3-word reaction? I think we did, didn't we?
You did.
I think I actually answered it.
You did.
I can't remember.
You did, mate. Yeah.
We got any favourites?
I think the ones I've got, I think, really sum up probably my feelings, but the fan base as well. So the only one, Juice, Never the Bride. Yeah, I feel that. Ribble Blue, 1875. Late subs. I did feel that, yeah. Stu BRFC, another chance wasted. I'm not sure about that one. I'm not. And Mark Howarth, well, yeah, I don't have a good memory there. Bramall Lane heartache. I don't have a good memory at Bramall Lane. You know, I think back to being a kid and watching us on I think it was an FA Cup, was it quarterfinal? Was it 2 legs or replay, whatever it was? I remember Wilcox whipping one in at one point. I think it might have been Tony Dobson or something scored. But we ultimately lost on penalties. So we've had the recent one in the FA Cup. We've had, I went there and we had a 3-0 absolute drubbing early on in that season. And under Thomason, I thought, oh my God, we're a million miles away from this team. I genuinely can't remember a positive moment there other than Friedel saving 2 penalties, did he, in one game? But I still don't think we won that game. So, yeah, to say Sheffield United is not an amazing team, we don't do well there.
I think both Sheffield clubs are generally it's quite difficult places to go. They've got, whenever we've played them, I think we've struggled. Whether it's a War of the Roses thing, I don't know. But I think the thing is with this game, I came away from this game not just thinking about what could have happened. I'm just thinking about what's going to happen now. And I said to my mates, I'm trying to justify things in my head because they're all taking the piss for a start because they all support different clubs. I mean, one of my best mates is a Brighton fan and he's smug as anything right now after decades of me taking the piss, and so he's smug as anything, and he's Beaty's going to be upset tonight. He's going to go home in a tantrum, and I don't know whether this was me just trying to justify things in my head or trying to have a nice evening after because I was slightly frustrated. But I just felt to myself that before the season, we said we'd take a mid-table finish. We felt like the squad wasn't anywhere where it should be, that we'd actually weakened ourselves as a squad. We took some risks on some signings. We were talking about Gay and Ohashi coming in, who are these guys, and so on. We got excited over Campwell. But generally, we was disappointed. We come out of the January window and it's absolute carnage. We're looking back, getting upset about the lack of signings and the players that did come in. They weren't of the quality we needed. Then we changed in manager. And I just said to myself, I was like, do you know what? We can now sell this club to players. We can say, look how close we were. Now, you could go to a player now and just say, look how close we were. Imagine what you could do to get us over the line. You could come in here and you could get us over the line, and imagine the kind of hero you would be. So now it's a selling point. You can now say to these players, that's how close we are. You could make the difference. And that's the way I was trying to justify it. It's like, I'll take 7th place. I would have taken it at the start of the season, as much as it's a heartache now that we were so close. And I'll be honest, if we'd gone to the playoffs, I genuinely don't think we would have made it to the final. I just had a gut feeling that if we did make it, we wasn't going to make it to the final. But I would have seen it as that selling point of the club.
Yep.
And that's how I justified it coming away. How was you feeling a day after, a few hours after, a day after?
I was trying to look at the positives. I was trying to say, well, it would have been it's my daughter's birthday around the week or so. Oh, it'd have been difficult to get to the games from work. Save me some money. I've got a Cortina's gig booked that I was like, I don't know if I can afford to go to that one. Now that's fine. I don't need to worry about Wembley. So I was trying to look at all the positives, but actually I was absolutely heartbroken, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, because we needed to break through that glass ceiling of getting into the playoffs and getting over the line. But I don't know if for some reason it just didn't feel like this was the right season to do it.
Well, the club did say that we weren't ready, didn't they, to be fair?
Yeah, and I think it felt like that. I mean, would you start looking at the likes of Dolan then and keeping him? And is he good enough then if you did get in the Premier League? All these kind of things. But then actually you come back to it, and obviously I did the preview with Sheffield United fan, and I've talked to a few, for my sins, a few dingles over the last week or so. And you come back to the fact the Premier League's not a fun place to actually be. It's a means to an end, but by the end of August, the novelty's worn off and you're losing every week. So there is an element of be careful what you wish for. But I think we'd all like to get back there. We'd all like to believe that, you talk about your mates who's a Brighton fan. I mean, one thing I would say to him, Mike, he needs to not be that smug, because it's the people coming through his youth development are Andy Moran and Cozy Dewberry. But if they're their shining lights, he needs to, they might as well pack that one in. But yeah, I mean, if people go, the gap's massive, but if Bournemouth can do it, if Brighton can do it, if teams like that can do it, then we can. But we're a long, long way off it, aren't we?
Yeah, and I hope there is a plan. And we now go as a club into a transition. And the transition could mean anything. I mean, they've been talking about rebuilds and so on. You look at the squad, how many players there are going to be here next year is still to be decided. We've said that we didn't want to age the podcast too much by talking about and making opinions too rash right now, because there's a lot that's going to happen over the next week or two. Players will go on holiday, agents are going to get involved, the recruitment team are now going to be getting together with the higher ups and deciding on budgets. The manager's obviously going to be getting involved with the kind of players he wants, and then ultimately the owners are going to be setting those budgets, and we're going to be looking. It's going to be a very interesting 2 weeks. The main ones are going to be contracts, and obviously that is Tyrese Dolan. Now, there is a rumour that he's meant to be already agreed to go to Middlesbrough, and there's people saying, he's going to Rangers in Scotland. I'm not hearing anything concrete, but the one thing that the likes, like what you said about, it seemed like he was coming on to say goodbye. There was some posts from Campwell. It does seem like he's going to be leaving the club, and I'm seeing split opinions on this. There's people like me that slated him, and that wasn't because he wasn't good enough. It was because he had too much potential, and I felt like he was wasting it and not developing as much as he could. And there's a lot of people who are just saying that he's the future and we need to invest into him. And there's others are saying he's absolute tosh, always been tosh, and he needs to leave. How important do you think it is Dolan's future is at Rovers for us?
Well, firstly, I think it's out of our hands. I think he's he will make that decision ultimately. I think he will go. I think that's been nailed on now for a little while. I really, really hope he doesn't go to Scotland. I think he'd do well there, but for the fact that we don't get any compensation then, whereas we will get a training fee if he goes to Middlesbrough, for example. I think if and when he does go, fans will judge that one based on what he does in the next couple of years. There's two sides to it, isn't there? His numbers aren't amazing. Just purely on numbers, you can probably replace him. But what you do look at is they keep talking about people being robust, people playing a high energy pressing game. That's Dolan. There's not many players in the Championship that play many more minutes. I know Dom Hyam's obviously been an ever-present, but in terms of attacking players, Dolan seems to be fit all the time. He seems to fit that high energy. He's 23. He's only a few months older than Owen Beck, for example. He's played over 200 games. And I think because he's played so many games, sometimes he gets judged on the fact that he's played those games rather than his age, and that people think, he should have been developed. He should be the finished article. Maybe he should. But also he's 23 years old. So there's two sides to the story. And I think ultimately, by the time he's been at a club now for a couple of years, when he moves on, where he is at 25 will decide what happens. But I don't think it's for lack of trying. I think the club have probably offered him something. It's just not at the level he wants. But maybe it's not about money. Maybe, that will be an element. But maybe it's about he wants to see a team who have a real chance of being in the Premier League. And maybe that's another indictment on us. That's the worry I have.
What's interesting is the amount of fans that talk to me from other clubs that say, I'll take that Dolan off your hands.
Yeah.
And he's got a very good reputation amongst other fan bases and commentary. Like I listen to the commentary of other clubs and stuff, and a lot of them are saying, "Oh, Dolan, tricky, very talented," and he is. He's going to get loads of opportunities to leave, and I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities to quote unquote better teams than us. Or teams that are in better situations than we're in right now. So I completely agree. I think he's going to go, but it just falls into the whole, we've got 2 weeks now where I think we'll find out in the next 2 weeks where a lot of these players are going and a lot of these contracts are going to be. So, we spoke before the pod about the loan players coming back. That's all going to be a part of the conversation. The youth players now that are coming of age that may need to come through and start playing more, that's going to be part of the conversation. So we don't really want to age ourselves too much on this one and talk about stuff. So I think next week we'll probably talk about reviewing the season, what's happened. Hopefully we'll have some news on that one. And then the season after, I think we can then hopefully get some information we can preview. But one thing we do need to talk about is you did mention the fans forum, Mark. I heard it was a bit of a bumper one. Do we need a separate video for this one?
Yeah, quite probably. I mean, the minutes are out. I'm sorry, I'm struggling here in the Lancashire sunshine, Mark. I've never ever known this. It's never been an issue in my life.
Mate,
I've never seen.
Mate, with your complexion, you need to stick some suntan lotion on.
Tell me about it. I'm going to look like I've been in prison and have a suntan. We probably do. To be fair, it's if people want to. I mean, the minutes are out there. They're quite comprehensive. I would say that people can't say we didn't ask the difficult questions. I'm not saying I'm delighted with all the answers. I think the club have answered more or less all the questions. Not all of them, but ultimately some of those questions need to be aimed at the owners, and they're not attending the fans forum, so it can be tricky. But yeah, it's an absolute bumper forum. A couple of people have already asked me about the next one that was scheduled, just so people can have an idea. It's scheduled on the 12th of this month. Well, obviously we delayed the last one by a couple of weeks. That one was always likely to be moved just because of how close it is in terms of proximity. But if it was to do with the playoffs, we could have had a little one to discuss whatever to do with the playoffs. But that's likely to be moved. Nothing sinister in it. Just there's probably nothing else to say than we talked about in the last forum yet. And middle of the summer, there'll be a lot more to talk about. So we will move that one. I don't know the day yet because we've only just, it's Bank Holiday Monday as we're recording this. But yeah, there's all sorts talked about. We talked about safe standing, the anniversary, the club kits for 26-27, just because of the timeline, but season tickets. But it'll be no surprise that the bulk of the forum is spent talking about the current unrest and the current situation. So yeah, if anyone's any questions, obviously the answers are generally in there, but I'm more than happy to try and clarify things if people want. But it was really well attended by the forum members, and people ask who the forum members are. That's always one of the questions. Well, generally speaking, forum's not one of the fan groups like the coalition, people who are joining that. It's just a collection of people who represent different groups. So BRFCS are on there. The Disabled Supporters Group are on there. Her Game 2, the SAS Supporters Group, the Disabled Supporters Group. I think I might mention them then. The Young Supporters are on there. So it's quite well represented. Not all of the fan groups are on there. Not all the fan groups want to come on there. But it's a way that we can speak to the club and ask the questions that people want asking. Like I say, we can't always get the answers that people want. We might not get the questions answered, but we can always ask them. But in terms of who attended from the club, you can't fault the club on this occasion. Steve Waggett, to be fair to him, he generally attends. I can't remember one he hasn't attended. He fronts up. He very rarely doesn't answer a question. If he doesn't know the answer, he does occasionally say, I'll go and find out. But to be fair to him, he does tend to answer all the questions. Sahel was there. He's been to the last couple now. Lindsay, head of operations. Christina Haynes, who's the inclusion officer. Rudy was there. Yasser Sufi. Adam Owen. Very impressive. Adam Owen. It's the first time I've met him, really. And then Anna Amelia, who's head of marketing. So, they were all there. They were all answering all the questions. So I think they want to be open and honest to an extent, but you've got to remember that they have employers as well. They probably want to say more than they can do sometimes. I think we're all in that boat, aren't we? But yeah, the minutes are there. People can make their own minds up. But if people want to have a podcast on it, absolutely, that's fine. I'll answer what I can. There's nothing really hidden, but obviously, if we put the full transcript of the forum in there, you'd still be reading it by the time the next forum comes around. So that's what the minutes are there for. But yeah.
We're lucky enough to have you there, giving us the information and summarising. So yeah, if people feel like a live video or just Mark doing a quick summary or video on what's gone out, put us down in the comments. Just put fans forum, yes please, something like that, and I'll try and convince Mark to host something for us so we can summarise, because I myself, I've been through it. There's a lot of information. Mark and everyone on that forum worked really hard. I didn't appreciate what you guys do. Well, I do now. So yeah, it's interesting. So if you feel like it's something we should do, put a comment down below. I'm sure Mark will do it. But Mark, you've been quite busy on social media for the channel today, putting quite a few things out there. Do you want to highlight some of the things that we've put out there today?
Yeah, so obviously next week we'll be talking about the season review of sorts. We'll be looking at I think we decided to go with the 4-2-3-1 because that's the formation we've used most of the season, and we're going to pick our team of the season. We're going to give some awards out. So we have whacked all of them on social media, mainly on X, but they are on all the other channels. You can have your vote. Who do you think's been the best goalkeeper, the right back, etc.? Who do you think it'll be coming out end of this week in terms of awards? Who do you think's been basically the overachiever, the underachiever, moment of the season, worst moment of the season, that kind of stuff? Get yourselves involved, and then we'll obviously discuss it next week. And then moving forward from that, I think we're going to look at the week after. We're thinking about hopefully there might be a bit of clarity in terms of contracts, who we've offered them to, who we haven't. We'll review all our loan players, what they've done away from Ewood Park when they're returning. Young Jake Beaty, for example, he's 20 years old. We'd said last year, well, he needs to go away and establish himself, and then he comes back into the squad. Actually, he's 3 years younger than Owen Beck. I'll talk about his time at Accrington Stanley, his stats, how often he's played. We'll review our loan players that we've had in, which won't take long. We'll review who we think we should be moving on, who's time for maybe a change from the club, and what positions we need to recruit. We'll probably not go into individuals of who we recruit because we're not playing Football Manager as much as I enjoy it. But yeah. So yeah, we'll try and get everyone involved, because if everyone can get involved, then at the end of the day, the more interesting it becomes, because as much as we are extremely interesting, Mike, there are people's opinions that vary from ours, and that's always what it's about.
Exactly, and that's why we're starting to experiment, putting out there you guys giving us some match reactions as well. There was quite a few people that I think that were upset this week, so we didn't get the uptake we were hoping for. But I think that there is a piece there that we can work on. So we're going to try and work on that, because we do want you fans to be involved as Rovers fans. I think we've all got different opinions, and I think it really sparks a good, interesting conversation, which is why our comments down below are good. If you've got a comment about anything that's happened at Rovers this week, obviously at the game, what's going forward, stick it down below, because that's where we want. But we want to start trying to grow the channel a little bit more, and that's for you guys. That's so then you can get more, we can get more players on, and so forth. So make sure while you are there, share, like, subscribe, because it really helps us. We also said thank you today to the fans, and we've had a great response of everyone appreciating what we do. And It was really nice to say, like, we're there trying to appreciate you guys for listening, and you guys are reciprocating back, saying thanks for making it. And it was really nice to hear that. And I know, Mark, you feel the same.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. It still quite amazes me how I'll be at games and people pop up and they're just like, do you know what? Really enjoying the podcast. Or so occasionally it throws you, because somebody will come and they'll start having a conversation with you like they know you, and you're looking and going, not sure I we've had sport before. It does throw me a little bit, but yeah, it's great. I mean, sometimes people come up and say they don't agree with what we're saying. Absolutely fine. We're all here for the debate.
That's football.
But yeah, of course it is. That's what makes it interesting. It'd be bloody boring if we all just agreed. But yeah, absolutely. From my perspective as well, Mike. Yeah, we'd probably sit here and talk to each other for an hour and a half about Rovers and every week, even if no one were listening. But the fact that people like it is, well, yeah, it's pretty amazing. But if there's anything people want us to do more of, to do less of, just let us know. Yeah.
100%. Well, yeah.
Just before we finish, Mike. Owen Waring over in Canada listens to the pod, going through not a great time at the minute. So I just wanted to give him a bit of a shout out. Follows Rovers, has done his whole life from Canada, from Ontario, Hamilton, Canada. So yeah, I just wanted to give him a shout out and say, I know Rovers haven't maybe given him all the boosts that he needs this season, but thank you very much for listening to the pod. And I know we are, me certainly, but yeah, I know everyone will send their well wishes, even if they don't know you personally. Right, it's all one big community. So yeah,
definitely, we're a family here, and 100%, mate. Yeah, Mark, we've just hit over the hour mark. We said we was going to keep it a short one because we didn't want to bore people any longer about stuff that we don't know anything about. So, Mark, it's been an honour to talk to you about football this season, all the matches. Now we get into the good stuff of predicting and reviewing. You're looking forward to it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to drawing a line under this season and then looking forwards. I think it's felt like a bloody long season at times, hasn't it? But yeah, I think we're ready now to move on. Yeah,
I feel like I've had about 10 seasons in one. I've lost all my hair. Can't believe how much hair I've lost this season. Disgusting. But no, I'm ready. I'm ready to, like you say, perfectly put, draw a line under it. Let's review it. Let's talk about the good stuff. Let's talk about the bad stuff. And then hopefully we'll be talking more positives going forward as we can all get excited about a new season. But I think we all need to just take a breath after this one and just enjoy the fact that we finished 7th. And yes, we missed out on playoffs, but don't worry. It's we've got plenty to talk about going forward, and we're ready to do it. But until then, comments down below, everything we've discussed today. Like, subscribe, share, do all the good stuff. And until next week, have a good one.